it's less of a surprise to me that an attack like this happened.
When people say they want to kill you and destroy you, we should take them seriously.
A Jewish person living in Boulder has basically nothing to do with what's going on in the Middle East.
I'm here in support of Israel, in support of all Jews.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Boulder, Colorado. And do you know what, folks? Back in 2017, National Geographic magazine declared Boulder, Colorado as America's happiest city. Now, I can tell you one thing. 1 week ago today, about 10 meters from where I'm standing, this was not a happy place. That's where a Egyptian national by the name of Mohammed Sabri Solomon allegedly hurled Molotov cocktails and then used a flamethrower, a homemade flamethrower, to try to burn and perhaps even kill as many attendees as possible. He did injure 15 people and one dog. He is now in custody. Now, the event last week was the Run for Their Lives campaign. This is to show solidarity with the remaining hostages that are being held by Hamas in Gaza. Today, I can tell you, this is the Boulder Jewish Festival. It's an annual event, but it's got a very different vibe this year, understandably. It's all about healing, given what happened to the Jewish community and their allies just a week ago. And I can tell you, it is a noticeably different event. I haven't been here before, but I've talked to attendees. And the first thing you notice is the preponderance of law enforcement. Many levels of law enforcement are here. They're very well armed. There are even several snipers on rooftops. I guess the message is, if you are a wannabe jihadi coming down here wearing trouble on your shirt, well, maybe you better rethink that plan, given what kind of response you can expect to happen. Now, folks, before we get to the crux of the matter, can you do me a favor? Can you go to coloradoterrorism.com? That's coloradoterrorism.com. Lincoln Jay and I, we came all the way from Toronto to Colorado to cover this event. We think it's important. We are traveling very modestly, but our expenses all in will be about $3,000. If you're able to, please go to that website, coloradoterrorism.com, and kindly make a donation. And as part of the bigger question, we really have to wonder, is it open season on Jews in the United States of America? It was in late May where two young people who were employed by the Israel Embassy in Washington, D.C. were gunned down in cold blood. And then, of course, you had what happened here last Sunday. And we know all across campuses in the United States of America, being openly Jewish is almost an act of provocation by those who are pro-Hamas, that you sometimes literally do have to run for your life. I'm delighted to report that the response to last week's atrocity is not people cowering and avoiding the festival. They're coming out here, perhaps in greater numbers than normal. I guess it's all about taking a stand, showing strength to those who would intimidate and hate and carry out acts of terrorism. My cameraman Lincoln Jay and I, we're going to walk around the festival and talk to people, try to get them to make sense of what happened here last week, and really, is it safe to be openly Jewish in the United States of America in 2025?
We're here in our resilience and in our love, in our fear of what might happen next, in our gratitude, and in our longing for hope.
How do you make sense of that horrific terrorist attack that occurred here just steps from where we are in front of the courthouse?
Well, it's not a surprise to me. I've been around Boulder for quite a while.
It was an act of terrorism, plain and simple.
Yeah.
I wish I had a longer answer to that one for you, but it's clear.
It was absolutely awful. Most of the victims are senior citizens, and they were walking in peace. And we've been doing this since October 7th. Always peaceful, never engaging with hecklers and detractors.
I think that with any conflict that there's misunderstandings on both sides, and people maybe not necessarily taking the time to find out about what's going on.
I absolutely think it's become open season on the Jews. I've heard thousands and hundreds of people, sometimes they'll gather out there on the streets at university campuses specifically, and they'll say things like, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution.
The country is moving further and further in the wrong direction as far as anti-Semitism is concerned.
I'm looking around at law enforcement. I even see snipers on the rooftops. To me, Daniel, it's like good news, bad news. It's good that they're here to ensure the safety, but it's kind of sad, isn't it, that in 2025 in the United States, this kind of response is needed to ensure the safety of peaceful attendees in the first place.
I think that was really well said. I went to law school here in Boulder. I've lived here in Boulder. When somebody says stay safe when you're going to Boulder for the day, we got a problem.
Over the last 30 years, we have always had a law enforcement presence at the festival. And as you noted, there's more this year. We are very proud of our relationship with the Boulder Police Department, grateful for all of the support that we're getting from the government in terms of additional security this year.
It exemplifies the fact that there has not been enough pushback against these double standards and the hatred and attacks against the Jewish community.
What's driving the anti-Semitism? You said you noticed it some 15 years ago. What's driving it, and who are the anti-Semites in the community?
Well, I think that there's a lot of left-wing groups in Boulder that have been here since the 1970s, and all of that has sort of morphed into more combative, more radical.
Is it safe to be openly Jewish in America today?
This is the first time in my entire life that I have not felt completely safe to be Jewish in America. And I'm not the person who might be a victim. I don't openly appear Jewish when I'm walking around, but I do feel it. I just came back from Israel. I felt very safe there. I don't feel as safe walking on the street here.
And what I find uncanny, here's a man that came to the U.S. about 3 years ago with his wife and 5 children, ostensibly to pursue the American dream, and yet, for some reason, his hatred towards Jews, his hatred towards Israel, he's practically thrown his life away. He's probably going to spend the rest of his days in prison. Can you explain to me how hatred manifests itself in such a grotesque way?
I really don't know. I don't know his reasons for initially coming. He could say to pursue the American dream. I don't know that much. I mean, I've read that he overstayed a visa. I read that he waited to perpetuate the attack until one of his kids graduated from school. So he's thinking in some kind of way of his family, but then to have that kind of mentality and then to say, I'm going to go light a bunch of senior citizens on fire who are peacefully walking down the street, I don't think you really can rationalize that.
Well, folks, it's just after noon here in Boulder, Colorado, and as you can see behind me, there is a walk of solidarity for the Jewish community. And here are my final thoughts after attending my first ever Boulder Jewish Festival. There are many differences on display when one attends a Jewish event as opposed to, say, a pro-Hamas rally. First of all, you don't see anyone chanting genocide here, do you? Rather, music fills the air. Second, nobody is wearing identity-concealing masks. Now, why would that be? Third, you don't see any flags of terrorist organizations on display. Funny that. Here's the deal. Last week, Mohammed Sabri Solomon, he tried to terrorize Boulder's Jewish community. He used Molotov cocktails. He used a flamethrower. He tried to literally incinerate people. Thankfully, none of Mr. Solomon's intended victims died thanks to that arson attack. I think it would have been somewhat of a victory for Solomon if the Boulder Jewish Festival had been canceled, if he had invoked so much hatred and fear towards the Jewish community that people would say, you know what, it's not worth life and limb to attend here, but by all accounts, it looks like this festival has record attendance this year. So the bottom line, I think, when you are dealing with hate mongers, don't bend the knee. And one last thing, never again. That is not some sort of disposable marketing slogan. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzies. Well, folks, I know you love it when Rebel News brings you the other side of the story. In fact, given that horrific terrorist attack here in Boulder, Colorado last week, we saw the mainstream media go out of their way to downplay the seriousness of it all. But you know what? We need your help. Unlike the mainstream media, we do not get funded by the Mark Carney liberals. We depend on your donations. Please go to coloradoterrorism.com. That's coloradoterrorism.com. And if you're able, please chip in $1 or $2 so that Lincoln and I can cover our expenses.